sermon made no direct reference to that background. Yet it is difficult to comprehend the movement's explosive growth at that very time without acknowledging that component. Similarly, throughout history, when other climate-related disasters have occurred, they have commonly had wide-ranging religious consequences. How could they not? As climate conditions have changed over time, they have affected human affairs and shaped attitudes. At times, those conditions might have promoted prosperity, abundant food supplies, fertility, and general contentment. Quite frequently, though, we can identify periods of acute harm, either short-lived, such as that of 1739 to 1742, or much longer lasting, such as the repeated hammer blows during the prolonged cooling period that has been termed the Little Ice Age. Climate and faith. Time and again, climate convulsions have been understood in religious terms through the language of apocalypse, millennium, and judgment. Often, too, such eras have been marked by far-reaching changes in the nature of religion and spirituality. As in the case of the Great Awakening, this does not mean that climatic conditions directly caused such outbreaks or currents. Rather, they created an atmosphere in which those changes could manifest themselves, and in historical terms, this happened very suddenly. Depending on the circumstances, the response to climatic visitations might include explosions in religious passion and commitment, the stirring of mystical and apocalyptic expectations, waves of religious scapegoating and persecution, or the spawning of new religious movements and revivals. In many cases, such responses have had lasting impacts, to the point of fundamentally reshaping particular faith traditions. From those eras have emerged passionate sects, some political and theocratic, some revivalistic and enthusiastic, others millenarian and subversive. The movements and ideas emerging from such conditions might last for many decades and even become a familiar part of the religious landscape, although with their origins in particular moments of crisis increasingly consigned to remote memory. By stirring conflicts and provoking persecutions that define themselves in religious terms, such eras have redrawn the world's religious maps and created the global concentrations of believers that we know today. Throughout history, climate and climate change have been key drivers of religious development. Not, of course, every innovation or movement, but many of them, and in remarkable diversity. Within Christianity, the warmth and prosperity of the High Middle Ages shaped the forms of Catholic faith and doctrine that emerged in that era, and which served as a foundation for later times. Very different and much harsher climate conditions created the turbulence and polarization from which Tridentine Catholicism emerged in the 1560s. Several eras of climate stress played a role in the emergence and evolution of Protestantism, especially in its evangelical forms. Successive crises were essential to the rise and growth of the Calvinism that was such a vital force in the early modern era, as well as of Anglo-American Puritanism. Other later transformative periods shaped evangelical and revivalist Protestantism and gave rise to many lesser-known sects, great and small. Climate factors likewise had their impact on important movements within other traditions, including Buddhism and Islam. Any historical account that ignores or underplays that climate dimension is lacking. That history must come to mind when we contemplate the global climatic pressures that are predicted for the coming decades, and which will have their most acute effect in certain highly populated parts of the world. Based on extensive past experience, we can imagine many ways in which the response to those circumstances might take religious forms. We could foresee the rise of new apocalyptic movements, as well as the spread of bitter religiously based animosity and conflict. Although we cannot predict future events with any certainty, our historical background provides some guidance.